Yeah. In your opinion, alright, your opinion, emphasis, which small party would you deem as youth-centric by their manifestos that they brought forward? Which one do you think is youth-centric?
I'm not going to answer that.
I'm trying my luck.
You did try your luck. And I'm not going to answer it for a number of different reasons, right? There are too many parties in this election, for my opinion, to be the one that you base it on, right? Do I think that there are parties in this election that are youth-centered? Absolutely. There's no way you're not going to find parties in this election that are youth-centered, either by the propositions that they put into their manifestos or by the kinds of people who are running, right? The reason why we have 52 parties that are running at national level is because younger people have taken a shot on themselves in this election and have raised their hands and are starting parties. Even if they're localized parties, they're small parties, all of that, but are there younger people to vote for? Are there parties looking at youth issues? Absolutely. But the reason why I'm not going to do it through my filter and through what I see or what it is that I want is because that then takes the work away from the rest of us to do our work, right? The options are so many, guys. And also, it's also based on visibility, right? How visible parties are. Now, who's visible to me will be different from who's visible to Soweto, which is where somebody living in Soweto, right? I would rather you look for somebody who is visible to you in your context than someone who's visible to me in my context. So now you're voting for someone I can access, but not necessarily somebody you can access. Remember I said access is important in this thing. Or you're voting for somebody who has convinced me, but somebody who might not convince you. So I think we must do the work, guys. There are two resources I will give all young people. One is there's an organization on Instagram called So We Vote, and another one called Let's Vote. Those are two resources that have actually been doing manifesto breakdowns from the point of view of young people. And then there is also a Tinder-like app, or what is the other one? Bumble-like app. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it now. But one where you can actually answer questions and swipe left or right for questions, and it helps you match with a party of your choice. What we have done at the Rivaldo Circle is we've created a board game to help you do this as well. So we have a We the Voters board game, and you then get to learn about different political parties through the questions that are asked in the board game. So I haven't answered the question, but I have given you ways that you can go answer the question for yourself.
Gotcha. Okay, speaking about small parties, right? What could you say is, who are the influences behind these political parties?
Okay, so how are small parties emerging?
Yes.
Cool. So there are 2 or 3 things that are influencing the starting of political parties, especially the smaller ones. Firstly is breaking away from old parties, right? A lot of people are disaffected by the big parties, feeling like the big parties are not accessible, feeling like the big parties don't listen, all of that. A lot of small parties are being started by people who are breaking away from existing parties. That is influencing it in many, many different ways. I mean, sometimes it's not small parties that form from that. Sometimes it's really big ones. So the MK party is an example of a quite big party at this point that is a breakaway from the ANC. The EFF was an example of that as well. So that's one thing that's influencing. The other thing is just demand in terms of what society is asking for, especially in community spaces. One of the things that we have learned in the last few years of doing community engagements around politics is that people want to vote for people they know.
Yes.
It's become a really simple impulse that people have given. Is we want to vote for people we know, and so we're pointing out people and saying, why aren't you running? Why aren't you running? That's also why this year we have independent candidates. Because sometimes people are working in their communities, they're doing that work, and then you just think, if I could vote, I would vote for you. And some people are responding to that and creating political parties and movements on the basis of that. I think that's a really good thing, by the way. I think it's probably the best thing for us. Right now, our political system has been set up in a way that we don't have direct representation, right? We don't get represented directly by people in our communities who we vote for to become MPs. We vote for parties, those parties can decide whoever they want to put into the game, they're going to put those people in. So what independent candidates and small parties give us the opportunity to do is select people we would back. And so that you know who your members of parliament are. So parliamentarians, every MP, of the 400 of them, each one of them gets given a constituency once they become an MP. So they get given a part of the country, a community, a set of communities. And they're told, those are the communities that you need to look after, you need to respond to. That means all of us here have more than one MP right now who's responsible for the area that you live in. Do you know who they are? They get money for this, by the way. Over the 1 million, by the way. They get constituency office money. They have offices that they can set up in your community. Have you ever seen those? No.
This is me learning something new.
Yeah. I only learned it 2 years ago. I learned this information 2 years ago. And so they're getting money to have constituencies in our communities and offices in our communities. But because we don't know them, we can't ask them. And so I like the idea of smaller parties that are located in our communities with people we know, with independent candidates from people that we know. And I think that that's one of the things that is causing more and more parties to be formed, even if it's just one seat in parliament. I'm telling you, the people in Bushbuck Ridge who are voting for the Bushbuck Ridge Association, those people are not expecting that the person that they vote for is going to be president. But they do want a seat at the table.
Yes.
They do want somebody who's in parliament whose number they have and who they can call. And I think that's an important factor that's causing more parties to come about. The third thing that is influencing it is money, right? Is funding. And there's a lot of conversation about funders or starting parties or this or that or the other. And in South Africa, it is expensive to do politics. It does take money to organize. You guys will know organizing costs money even when you're doing it on campus.
Yes.
You want to organize 100 people coming together. That thing costs money. It just, now imagine when you're trying to get 100,000 people to vote for you. Or you're trying to get 1 million people to vote for you. It costs money. So money is a factor. And I think that we have a political culture in the country that has meant the money is coming from a very small group of people right now. Because it's who has money to just, that they're not going to miss in Cyril's economy when things are tough.
Yeah.
And so we've left funding of politics to a very small group of people, most of them white, most of them old, most of them living, in very high lives unrelated to our lives. What I do think we need to do is change that. We need to change the way we fund our politics. So in the past, and it's still technically the case today, parties would fund through membership, right? Your 10 rand membership fee a year, all of that kind of stuff. And that sometimes has become perverted because then people buy members, because it's just 10 rand. So you just buy membership, and because you're a wealthy enough person that you can buy membership. But I think there's still a wisdom in asking people to part with money and fund their own politics. So I said, if I ever went into politics, I would rather ask for 1 rand from 1 million people than 1 million rand from one person. And I think that's the kind of political funding that we need to start doing. So it's easy to say, we're upset because these white people are funding politics. Yeah, why aren't we funding our own politics? Why aren't we? Because we could do it, right? If somebody's given 1 million, then all of us. So this year, this election, there are 11 million young people who are registered who are below the age of 39, right? The limit every year that somebody can fund a political party is 15 million rand. If you ask all of those 11 million young people for 2 rand each, you have 22 million from those 11 million young people. You could actually fund a political party that way. But we aren't thinking that way. We're thinking about where's the big money, and the big money often makes it more complicated to organize from below. So those are the kinds of factors that are important.
Yeah. How about we go to our last segment, hey, Lona?
Okay, before we wrap up our podcast for today, there are frequently asked questions, questions that tend to confuse people, that they normally ask in the streets. But we do have Anganathi Jack who will join us from behind the scenes. She will be taking us through those questions.
Cool.
Okay, so we have 3 questions. I'll ask one question and then you'll respond and then that's how I'll continue. So the first question is, what happens if I have registered to vote but I don't go to cast my vote because of the ideology that if I don't cast my vote but I am registered to vote, that my vote goes to the ruling party?
Alright. So nothing happens to your vote if you don't show up to vote. Absolutely nothing happens to your vote. The only votes that matter are the people who show up, right? So right now, in this election, 27.7 million people are registered to vote. If only 10 people show up, and I mean literally 10, number one, the election will be valid. But those 10 people will make up 100% of the votes. That's it. And those 10 people will decide for the rest of us. So the rest of us cease to exist once those 10 people have shown up and they're the only ones who show up. Now here's why that's a problem, right? Because it actually makes it easier for political parties to win big percentages the less people are that show up, right?
So in a nutshell, the ideology that says, like the idea that if you do not cast your vote, it goes to the ruling party is not true.
It's not true, but what it does mean is it makes it easier for the ruling party to win because fewer people means you can get bigger percentages. The math is easy, right? So if 10 people show up and 6 people vote for the same party, that party would get 60%, right? In that same election, if 20 people show up and 6 people vote for the same party, how much percent is that? It's 30%. So the fewer people show up, the bigger parties benefit because the percentage is what determines the seats in parliament. And so I think people have kind of used that as in a misleading way, but what it means is you're making it easier for the ruling party when you don't show up.
Okay, and the second question is, what is a provincial ballot and when will I need to make use of it?
All right. So there are 3 ballots that you will get this year when you go and vote, right? All of us who go and vote will get 3 ballots unless you're not voting at your voting station, which I'll talk about now. But the 3 ballots are for the National Assembly, there's 2 ballots, and for provincial, there's 1 ballot. So the first ballot is a blue ballot called the national ballot. On that ballot, you will have only political parties, the 52 political parties, that are trying to get seats in parliament. And that's for 200 of the 400 seats in parliament. Then you get a second ballot called the regional ballot. That is also for National Assembly or for parliament, but for the other 200 seats. The difference with that one is 2 things. One is for every province, that regional ballot will have different people on it. So it will be people from your province who are trying to go to the National Assembly. But on that ballot will also be a mixture between political parties and independent candidates. So independent candidates who want to go to National Assembly from your province will be on your regional ballot. Those 2 together make up national. And then your third ballot, which I think is pink, yeah, I think it's pink, is your provincial ballot. You'll get it on the same day. And there you're choosing people who will go to what we call the provincial legislature or the provincial parliament. So we're voting for 2 different parliaments. Well, at least it's actually 10 different parliaments because it's the national parliament and then the 9 provincial parliaments. And so those are the ways that we vote.
And the last question is, when will the election results, when do we expect the election results to be announced?
Shoo, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, right? And I'm being very serious. So in the past, well, let's explain the process. So what happens is we all go and vote. At 9 o'clock, the voting stations close. What's important for people to know in this election is that you have to vote at the station that the IEC says you must go and vote at. So where you are registered to vote is where you must show up. If you go to any other voting station, you will stand in that queue, get to the front and get told, sorry, you can't vote here.
Really?
You have to go, so check on the IEC's website. They've got a USSD code as well that you can check to see exactly which voting station you must go to. Then, after 9 o'clock at night, so also for people who are voting for the first time, 9 o'clock means as long as you were in the queue by 9 p.m., they can't chase you. So even if you haven't voted by 9, if you get into the queue by 9 o'clock, you have to be able to vote. Once everybody is voted at the voting station, the people who are running that voting station, plus what they call party agents, which is members or representatives from the parties, and observers, which are general public or people who are accredited to observe, will then start counting the ballots in that station. Every station. There are about 23,000 stations across the country. So each station counts their own ballots. Once they've all agreed that this is the right ballot tally, they'll write that up, close those boxes, and then send it so that it can be part of the national tally. So really, for like small voting stations, you'll start seeing results after like midnight.
Okay.
So results will start coming in slowly after midnight, and they'll go and go and go and go. For places like Gauteng and Johannesburg, the big places with lots of numbers of people, you really start seeing that coming in like the next day, even the day after that. Because although all of the voting at the station is done, the collecting of those votes takes a lot of time. Making sure every voting station is put together and then collated. So that takes a lot of time. Because we also have now a third ballot, the regional ballot is new. It used to take 2 or 3 days to count and then decide. I think like by the Saturday after we vote on Wednesdays, we've usually had a result. I can't say for sure that that's going to happen this time because there's now another ballot to be counted, and so it may take a little bit longer. It won't take more than a week in general, but yeah, we'll know the results in about a week. And then once the results are declared, then we have 14 days before Parliament sits for the first time and elects president. So that's generally the timeline.
Thank you. That's it from us. Do stay tuned.